So you kind of moving past where you came from and how you got into this whole thing. What are you working on now? What is the current thing for you?
Well, bunch of things. I usually working on a lot of things at once, but I just put out a Kickstarter campaign that ended for the Gemini Man series, which was originally done by Silver Empire Press, who went out of business a few years back. So they gave me back the books, and I wanted to put them back out, but obviously I had three books and had to figure out how to put them all out for everybody to read. So I put a Kickstarter, and I was for basically an omnibus cover for all three books in one, and I had stretch goals for bonus stories that got reached. So I'm currently writing one of those right now. The first one was sent to the editor, and the second one I'm still outlining. And at the same time, I'm writing another story for a magazine submission period that's coming up very soon.
Oh, right on. I'm curious. So I'm curious about how many magazines are there out there that like open submission for this type of work.
Oh man. Right now there's Cirsova, obviously. There's Story Hack magazine. I was in there a few times, but don't know when they're putting out open submissions again. And Iron Age just recently had one called Anvil. Yeah, I submitted to that one. I have a story coming in issue two of that. Um, Aside from those three, there are a bunch of other ones that tend to come and go. I think there's one called Silence and Star Song, which is a science fiction magazine for, I think, Christians. So it's like C.S. Lewis space trilogy sort of thing. Um, Other than that, I'm not aware of any ones that are open on a more consistent basis. Some of them come and go. There was one a couple years ago that just disappeared and then came back with like a random anthology and disappeared again, and I can't remember their name.
Well, from what I mean, from what I know a couple of the publications you're talking about, and most of these tend to be like one or two guys that are running the whole thing. So I imagine it's, hey, when the day job's not calling, we've got time to put out the book, we do it kind of thing. Um, but I do feel like the industry certainly is taking taking a turn in that I think more people are finding it, more people are becoming disgruntled with like what the mainstream offers, certainly. And I think the what's struggling right now is the in like the ecosystem building up outside of like what used to exist. It's like you mentioning like four or five books off the top of your head that put out this kind of material. Um, I mean, that's how many there used to be back in the day. You know, we'll go back to the 90s. How many different indie pub or how many different publishers were putting out short story material?
Mm, they were even harder to find then.
So, um, what type of do you gravitate more towards like the science fiction or the what do you call it, fantasy stuff, or like when we talked to Cirsova the other day, and he's very likes adventure as a term more.
Yeah, I do more adventure stuff because my stuff tends to just lean in whatever direction the story wants to go. So I've had pretty much elements of all of that stuff in my stories at one point or another. I don't really sit down and say I want to do a space story or a, fantastical story. It's just like whatever the story is, it's what it ends up being. I've just had one in an anthology at the beginning of the year, Sidearm and Sorcery 2, called City Eater, which was supposed to be just a horror story, but it spun a bit out of control. So it's like whatever the story is what it ends up being.
So you're one of those guys. It's like, well, I just put the pen to paper, and then it comes out, and it's gonna be what it's gonna be.
Yeah, it just is what it is.
I've always envied guys that could do that because for me, it's like, oh, I need a detailed plan and know exactly what I'm doing at every point going into this, and then we got it. Then we can edit it into something.
Well, like I still like outline stuff, but sometimes when you outline, it just ends up going, no, that's not the way the story's going. So it just goes the other way. It just happens.
Right on. So you said you work on multiple things at a time. I'm curious. Like you've been at this like actually having published since 2016, how much work do you actually have out there?
Oh, right now, if we're including the Kickstarter, which was the three books which are being delivered right now, going to be put on Amazon very soon, shortly as well. I've put out 10 books total, and I think I've written somewhere in the ballpark of about 20 to 30 short stories. Not all of them, obviously, are in like anthologies or magazines, but total, I think that's where I'm at right now.
Hmm. I'm curious, do you have any like short story anthologies that you've put out yourself on top of things that have gone out in other publications but have gone past contractual time on them?
Yeah, actually, I have my page right here. I have Someone is aiming for you in other adventures, where the first seven stories, more or less, that I short stories I wrote, I put that out back in, was it 2020 or 2019? I don't remember which year. But those ones were my original idea, was just to do a sort of mashing up of like superhero stories and old pulp hero stories, and it came out to be this weird mishmash of noirish horror type superhero stuff. And I put that one out a while back. People seem to like that one.
It sounds awesome. I'm listening like, oh, I'd read that.
Yeah, there was I put seven stories in that one. They all kind of link together, in kind of an overarching narrative in a way. You can read them standalone or read them together and get something else out of it. I like doing my short story collections like that. But that's the first one I did. I also have another one in the works right now that Cirsova, of all people, is putting out next year, which should be interesting. That one is a lot harder to describe because there's planetary swords and planet, space cops, and all kinds of different things.
Ooh,
Yeah.